Donna and Sherry, we're going to go back a little bit because you mentioned Q a little bit, and it's not something that we've talked about a lot, but they basically want to know what your take on Q is and how you know we can trust him.
I trust Q, and the reason I trust Q is because I know the president's involved. There's been too many signs. There's been too many things that he has said that has come to pass almost within 24, 48 hours. But the big reason I trust Q is because right here in this book right here are all the prophecies that God has given me. And in those prophecies, it's almost like Q is following the prophecies. Everything that Q says is lining up with the prophecies that God has given me. If you go back, and I tell people, print these prophecies out. They're not mine or God's, but print them out. And it's like a blueprint from start to finish. You'll see where God is starting and where he's going with this whole thing right now. And if you'll notice, everything that Q is doing is lining up with the prophecies. That's how I know I can trust him.
Interesting. Yeah, definitely do that.
Right. The plan goes ahead as planned. And the beauty of it is,
have you ever asked God for forgiveness? I'm not sure I have. I just go and try and do a better job from there. I don't think so. I think if I do something wrong, I think I just try and make it right. I don't bring God into that picture. I don't. And Norman Vincent Peale, the great Norman Vincent Peale, was my pastor. The Power of Positive Thinking. Everybody's heard of Norman Vincent Peale. He was so great.
They have this 501c3 tax-exempt status, which entangles them with the deep state, the American government, and the deep state. So this is what he says about churches that have tax-exempt status, that they're in a covenant with the kingdom of darkness. Now, let me say this right up front so that no one misunderstands. I'm not saying that it's good for churches to have this tax-exempt status and be a 501c3 church. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm not arguing that point. That's not where I argue with Mark Taylor. Mark Taylor, just like anybody else, is going to say some things sometimes that maybe we can all agree with. I had a ministry for many, many years, over 40 years, ministering to prisoners in prisons and jails across America. And of course, I supported it mostly myself. I was the one that funded it as I was a working man. And I put my own money into it. But also, every once in a while, I would get a contribution from someone. But I never sought government tax-exempt status. I did not want to get entangled with the government myself. I did not want to get into all the red tape of the government and having to fool with that, having to get entangled with the government. I didn't want to do that myself. And so I don't argue with that point at all. But here's the remarkable thing about this. Liberty University is making this film about Mark Taylor, and they're exalting him as God's prophet, saying that he is a prophetic voice and that he prophesied correctly about Donald Trump. They're making this movie that's coming out October 2nd and 4th in theaters all across America, and he's saying that any church is that is tax exempt is a travesty. You know, they're in covenant with the devil. They're in covenant with the kingdom of darkness. And I will show you right now proof that Liberty University and Thomas Road Baptist Church both have 501c3 tax exempt status. I checked it out. I'm going to put on a screenshot right now to show you that they have 501c3 tax-exempt status. Okay, so here's the clincher now. You tell me, if A equals B and B equals C, then does not A equal C? I mean, is that not simple logic, and is that not simple math? Okay. So in other words, if Liberty University is a tax-exempt church, a tax-exempt organization, Thomas Road Baptist Church is a tax-exempt church, a tax-exempt organization, and if churches with tax-exempt status are in a covenant with the kingdom of darkness, then it follows, according to Mark Taylor's own words, that Thomas Road Baptist Church and Liberty University, then, being organizations with tax-exempt status, both 501c3 organizations, then, according to Mark Taylor's own words, they are in covenant with the kingdom of darkness. And he...
You know, if you go out and you want to buy groceries, you need a picture on a card. You need ID. You go out and you want to buy anything, you need ID and you need your picture. In this country, the only time you don't need it, in many cases, is when you want to vote for a president, when you want to vote for a senator, when you want to vote for a governor or a congressman. It's crazy. It's crazy. We got to find something. We got to do anything to...
Well, Americans are going to be and already are forced to comply by October 1st, 2020. If you do not comply, well, that means no entry for you. And the bills and legislation were passed in 2005. What am I talking about? Well, many of you probably already heard about this, but I want to bring it back up because I think it's a very critical point that we are at in our society today. I am talking about the real ID. Now, if you've gone to the DMV lately, you may have gotten a notice or some kind of new requirement stating that you cannot fly, nor can you, well, enter any federal buildings if you don't comply with the new federal national ID called a real ID. For those of you who may not know what the real ID is, I'm going to throw up the resolution here on the screen, but this was passed again in 2005, and it's called the Real ID Act, House Resolution 1268, and it's titled Improve Security for Driver's License and Personal ID Cards. Now, this requires you, when you go into the DMVs, to submit your name, your phone number, your address, stuff that you would submit for a driver's license. However, it takes it a step further, and it asks for proof of residency, your birth certificate, and your Social Security card. Additionally, this will include facial recognition technology. It reads, subject each person applying for a driver's license or ID card to mandatory facial image capture. What does that mean? Well, that means that they have your face on record in a federal national database. It means when you go to the airport, you can have an ID with your face on it. And in addition to that, they'll have your face on their screen. That is what facial ID recognition technology is. They have your face scanned, and now they have the ability to find you in a crowd.
It's a lot easier to act presidential than to do what I do. Anybody can act presidential. Ladies and gentlemen,
the attitude is not going to speed things up any bit at all. I'm going to ask you to speak into the mouthpiece very clearly.
With two branches.
Aquí está la división de
You
la
have the
guerra.
division of war in the middle,
El olivo
and the olive tree
lentamente
is
hacia la paz.
slowly trying to bring them together in peace.
No, we can use that. We can use peace.
Podremos usar esta paz. Tenemos tanto necesitamos. That is my desire that this can be another for peace. And this is the message of peace. And he signed it personally for you.
Larger room where the Saudi Arabian advisor gave the Pope some gifts. He presented Pope Francis with a miniature replica of the most sacred place for Muslims, Mecca, which is located in Saudi Arabia. On the inscription on the box, the leaders thanked the Pope for his role as the promoter of peace and coexistence in the world. The advisor also gave him some delicate perfumes from the country and a misbaha, the Muslim rosary with which they recall the 99 names of Allah. Pope Francis gave the representative the
China is Venezuela's biggest creditor, has invested heavily in its oil industry and regards President Maduro as its strongest ally in South America.
China has lent more money to Venezuela, upwards of $60 billion, than it has to any other country in the world. It's probably been repaid up to 2/3 of that, but that leaves anywhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 billion.
James Bond story. Have a look at this tweet here saying, who says James Bond is fake? A plane mysteriously arrives, nothing to see here, just a billion in gold reserves disappearing overnight. And that wasn't the only claim we were digging up. Manuel and I are looking through this
out, and we can try it out without being held back by existing infrastructure, plus being allowed new types of legislation. So we have full legislative authority, and we've been asked by His Royal Highness the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, write this legislation in the most investor-friendly way and in the most future-oriented way.
NEOM is derived from the Latin Arabic word neo mustaqbal, or new future. Saudi Arabia believes that future must be shared. NEOM project will extend to neighboring Arab countries like Jordan and Egypt, and the city will have its own constitution to free it from the Saudi known conservativeness, and that is to attract citizens of the whole world.
Egyptian President El-Sisi, a strong ally of Israel, has formed strong alliances with Saudi Arabia to be a part of the NEOM project. A budget of 500 billion has been allocated for the construction of this mega city, and the brightest brains of our time will come from all over the world to participate in its development. Indeed, according to its designers, NEOM must bring together not only the best of Arabia, but also Asia, Africa, but Europe and America as well.